What do you call that?
The only place over here,
Right
Johnny.
here?
The only place right here I get some respect. They're very nice here. And how you playing?
I'm fine. How are you? I was going to ask you that.
Oh, yeah?
You're looking good.
Oh, yeah, thank you very much. I'm keeping busy, running around doing things.
Oh, whereabouts?
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm flying tomorrow. I'll be in Detroit Friday night.
Detroit?
Oh, great. Yeah, Detroit. That's a great place. I'll pick up some plugs and points while I'm there, too, I think. You know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, the center stage in Detroit Friday night.
They didn't have that down
They didn't have that down there?
No.
Well, what are they going to do?
The center stage in Detroit.
Center stage. I'll be in Dangerfield Saturday night, and I'll be in Dangerfield the whole month of June. You got to keep busy all the time.
Tell us about it.
Yeah, well, I played a new version of Russian roulette. Yeah, we passed around 6 girls, and one of them had VD. No, you got to relax, Johnny. I traveled too. I've been to Europe,
Oh, really?
Yeah. English people are weird, I told the cab driver I'd like to see the Queen. He told me later on he'll meet me for a drink.
Pesos?
Nah, but drinking is bad, Johnny. It's bad for your health. That's what's important, your health. Oh, yeah, you get so heavy, I can't lose any weight. Forget it. I got a big appetite. Are you kidding?
Like to eat, huh?
Well, when I eat at McDonald's, I stand outside and watch the sign change. You got to exercise. I don't exercise.
You got to keep
too
it
old
big.
exercise.
Oh, come on now.
Kid, if you see me jogging, it means the laxative is working. Now you get older, you start using laxative.
That's true.
And I'm getting old. You kid, in my backyard, I got a kidney-shaped pool with a stone in it. Old.
Good morning. It's Saturday, Rules Saturday, December the 27th, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity Prayer and the patriotic song of the day, we will have no free lunch, motivation, meditation, and the return of the primitive. All that and more when I get back. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I should not change, the courage to change the things I should, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Thank you. And now there's no free lunch. 250 Economic Truths by David Bahnsen.
While a low capital gains tax is not the only necessary ingredient to fostering an entrepreneurial spirit, the lower the rate, the more capital will flow from those who have it in surplus to those who are in deficit. It is not the entrepreneur who thinks about the tax he or she will have to pay if the enterprise they undertake is successful. It is the investor who makes those calculations, which is why at the margin, more top-to-bottom capital is created as the rate is lowered. Jude Winniski. Those who favor less taxes on capital implicitly favor more capital formation, and capital formation is the sine qua non of an entrepreneurial economy. Inversely, those who favor more tax on capital implicitly favor less capital formation, perhaps explicitly, and advocate the stifling of the capital the entrepreneur needs to innovate, grow, and prosper. More capital gets from investors to creators when less capital is taxed away. It would be more obvious if it weren't already so completely obvious.
And that was There's No Free Lunch by David Bahnsen. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, rules for retrogrades.
Rule 20. All retrograde youth opting against the religious life must be raised so as to be disposed to marry as young as possible and to procreate abundantly. Retrogrades should consider this the biological solution to widespread political and moral problems. Radicals are constitutionally sterile and can easily be beaten demographically by the provision of an abundant new retrograde generation in 15 or 20 years. Simply put, we outbreed the radicals. Today's ubiquity of sterility-promoting radical boomerisms embodies the moral decadence presently popular in society. The preponderance of today's culture of death, wait until your 30s philosophy regarding family planning, has yielded small, materialistic families with manufactured, unnatural expectations regarding the amount of wealth required to begin a family. The radical worldview has brainwashed virtually all of society that each and every responsibly birthed newborn requires his own pre-appointed bedroom, cellular data plan, college fund, and career path. Without these already in place before baby's arrival, radical boomerisms instruct us mother and father are just breeding like rabbits. On the contrary, parents of large families well understand that kids love sharing bedrooms. Smartphone ownership and screen time destroy kids' imaginations and attention spans. College and career should be mapped out not in infancy or elementary school, but rather according to the established merits of middle and high school students. In other words, a man's career and wealth can afford to mature gradually, as his family does. Poverty, not to be confused with destitution, and thrifty living, is good for a love-struck married couple fresh out of high school or college. There is plenty of time for their bank account to develop organically as their family grows. A single newborn baby or two proves remarkably cheap to care for. The radicals, of course, are up against the facts of nature. The likelihood of infertility has almost tripled if a couple waits to conceive until 30 years of age, compared against the same couple's rate at 20 years of age. Science does not lie. The human body's peak fertility occurs at 20 years old for a biological reason. Bear in mind, this is the average age of a college sophomore. If only humanity were to return to a non-manufactured, non-contrived, natural family planning by heeding the anatomical physiological science on this matter, then young men and women would certainly rise to the occasion. Imagine how different a culture of 20-year-old first-time parents would look from a culture of 30-year-old first-timers. Such widespread cultural expectations would be prospective in the sense that teens would customarily make radically different choices in anticipation of real adulthood beginning a decade prior to its present presumed starting point. Arrested development, which its perpetual teenagehood, would be stopped in its tracks. Retrogrades have been mostly blind to the fact that an aggressive approach to the bio-solution is a guaranteed path to eventual victory over the radicals. Apart from the opportune statecraft implied by the retrograde biosolution, the benefits which accrue to the young marrieds are plenary. When the sacrament of marriage is practiced properly and timely, men avoid the near certain fate of becoming offbeat, self-obsessed, and lecherous, a fate which awaits perpetually single men as an eventuality. Women avoid the terminus of extended female singlehood, growing shrill, insecure, and officious as they age without a spouse. Women who wed young, virtuous men customarily avoid these vicious qualities of resentment, since they are not habitually looking down their noses upon perverted, morally base husbands who formed lecherous habits in the 20s and 30s. Conversely, when a couple marries young, the man and the woman grow up in the virtues together in the adventurous milieu of the benign financial poverty of youth. Fresh on their journey, the young couple will form good lifelong habits together. Salutary marital habits of teamwork and specialized labor were designed by human biology and the human lifespan to be inculcated in the late teens or early 20s, rather than in the late 20s or early 30s, by which time bad habits have already solidified. A fruit must be picked when it is ripe, not long before or after. Human beings simply aren't open to begin marital teamwork when they get too old. After all, the law of opportunity cost dictates that couples who wait until the 30s to marry may only have so many kids, even if they envision having large families. Having a truly large family mandates an early start. An early start, in turn, mandates purposeful courtship. To initiate courtship, young men should clearly, plainly, directly ask young women for one-on-one dates. The request should be clear, specifically romantic in orientation, and plainly committal. Dinner and a wholesome activity should be expressed as on offer. For their part, young women should clearly, plainly, and directly accept the invitation by young men they are interested in. Just as the offer should be unconditional, so should the young woman's acceptance be. Young women should not request a group hangout, a pre-date coffee or lunch, or any condition precedent to the date. These all constitute breaches of nature. Like matrimony, the first date necessarily involves two, and only two people, some calculated risk, unmitigated mutual interest, and mutual commitment. If any of these mitigators appear necessary to the young woman, she should simply and politely decline the young man's invitation. Courtship should last only as long, no longer, as the man reasonably requires in order to discern his compatibility with the woman, and then to tender to her a timely marriage proposal. Such a period of discernment should occupy a varying span of months in duration, not years. As with the first date, the young woman should not condition her proposal acceptance or denial. All her relatives, presumably influenced by boomerisms, will certainly admonish her that she hasn't known him long enough. As noted above, culture of death boomerisms now advise youth to date for the greater part of a decade. If accordingly she feels inclined to request more time, she should simply and graciously reject his proposal. If this rule is followed meticulously, Western dating and marriage will begin to make sense again. A return to classical courtship and prompt marriage will restore the Christian dignity of intersex relations. More importantly still, it will restore sanity to the home and the state.
And that was Rule 20 from Rules for Retrogrades, 40 Tactics to Defeat the Radical Left by Timothy J. and David R. Gordon. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, some motivation.
That you haven't even called on yet. You've got some stuff in you that you don't even know right now. There are things that you feel, that you know in your heart of hearts that's not logical, it's not practical, it's not realistic, but there's something in you that says, I can do this. Even if no one else sees it for me, I must see it for myself. Hold a vision of being whole and healthy. Hold a vision of being financially independent. Hold a vision of your relationships working out. Hold a vision of things getting better for you. And holding that vision will give you power. It will empower you. It will strengthen you. It will give you perseverance. It will give you patience. It will give you faith to hold your ground. We have that kind of power, that kind of genius, that kind of fortune, that kind of wealth, that kind of happiness, that kind of sense of fulfillment in our hands. We have that. We can decide, hey, wait, this is the only life that I have. And I'm going to take the leap of faith. I'm going to jump in it, and I'm going to handle it because I know the universe will never give me anything I don't have the capacity to handle. Trust yourself. Take the leap of faith and believe, and don't doubt, and know within yourself, in everything in you, that everything is going to be all right.
If I can take it, I can make it.
If you can take it, you can make it.
If you can just keep believing, when nothing in you is working, when all your external forces have given way, if you can just manage to somehow keep hoping, you have a chance. You just can't become hopeless. If you can just keep hope alive, you can make it. Because if you keep hoping, it is really faith. You just got to transpose it into I hope this happened to I believe this can happen. Life is like a grindstone. It can polish you or it can pulverize you, depending on how you position yourself.
There's one side of pain that's the suffering and the discomfort side of pain. But then there's another side of pain that's called effort. It's called glory. It's called if you can find a way to push through pain, there's something greater on the other side of it.
Every time you find yourself saying that you can't do something, putting yourself down, being negative about you and the possibilities for you, you've got to literally catch yourself. And you've got to affirm to yourself, hey, no, I can make it. There's some way this can happen for me. You've got to say yes to my dreams, yes to me, yes I can. Doesn't matter how many failures I've made, doesn't matter how many mistakes I've endured, doesn't matter about what I've done, I can make it. I'm putting it out here. I'm not going to rest until I have it. It's necessary. I'm going to do it. How do you stand the race, Les, when you lost your money, lost your car, had no place to stay, sleeping in people's houses, on their floor, on their couch? How do you handle the times when you borrowed money and couldn't pay it back? You felt humiliated when people you love who didn't believe in you told you you ain't nothing. How do you keep on coming back again and again? Well, you've lost your business or lost your job or lost your home and you've been completely devastated. How do you come back? Oh, let me tell you something. It's possible.
The greatest achievement of somebody comes right after their worst defeat. When they've hit rock bottom, hit the bottom of the barrel, they got nothing left. Everyone's given up on them. The dead broke on their back. They're just now left with the intestinal fortitude, the pride within. Do I want to stay on the bottom of this barrel or do I want to climb the guide this hole? Because at that point, when everything's lost, that everything can be gained.
You've got to remind yourself, I know I got what it takes to do this. And it's necessary that you go at it with everything in you, pulling deep down within, challenging yourself.
Once you have that belief that's so strong that overrides the crowds of disbelief, the adversities, anything, you welcome that because that right there is supposed to fucking happen. Because without that kind of abuse on you, you will not become the battle-tested, proven champion that holds the title, has the value of the title. You must go through those ends. Hit rock bottom. Your worst hour of despair becomes your best. As you get back up, you learn from that. And you continue to put one foot in front of the other. Because what you're going for is what you believe.
And that was a little bit of meditation. Nope, excuse me, motivation. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now a little meditation. And that was a little bit of meditation. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, the next part of Chapter 7 of Return of the Primitive.
For the few brief years of his adolescence, a young person's future is urgently, though dimly, real to him. He senses that he has to determine it in some unknown way. A thinking youth has a vague glimmer of the nature of his need. It is expressed in his concern with broad philosophical questions, particularly with moral issues, i.e., with a code of values to guide his actions. An average youth merely feels helpless, and his erratic restlessness is a form of escape from the desperate feeling that things ought to make sense. By the time they are ready for college, both types of youths have been hurt in and out of school by countless clashes with the irrationality of their elders and of today's culture. The thinking youth has been frustrated in his longing to find people who take ideas seriously, but he believes that he will find them in college, in the alleged citadel of reason and wisdom. The average youth feels that things do not make sense to him, but they do to someone somewhere in the world, and someone will make the world intelligible to him someday. For both of them, college is the last hope. They lose it in their freshman year. It is generally known in academic circles that, according to surveys, the students' interest in their studies is greatest in their freshman year and diminishes progressively each year thereafter. The educators deplore it, but do not question the nature of the courses they are giving. With rare exceptions, which are lost in the academic mainstream, college courses in the humanities do not provide the students with knowledge, but with the conviction that it is wrong, naive, or futile to seek knowledge. What they provide is not information, but rationalization. The rationalization of the student's concrete-bound, perceptual, emotion-oriented method of mental functioning. The courses are designed to protect the status quo, not the existential, political, or social status quo, but the miserable status quo of the student's psychoepistemology as laid down in the progressive nursery schools. The progressive nurseries pleaded for a delay of the process of education, asserting that cognitive training is premature for a young child, and conditioned his mind to an anti-cognitive method of functioning. The grade in high schools reinforced the conditioning. Struggling helplessly with random snatches of knowledge, the student learned to associate a sense of dread, resentment, and self-doubt with the process of learning. College completes the job, declaring explicitly to a receptive audience that there is nothing to learn, that reality is unknowable, certainty is unattainable, the mind is an instrument of self-deception, and the sole function of reason is to find conclusive proof of its own impotence. Even though philosophy is held in a, today, well-earned contempt by the other college departments, it is philosophy that determines the nature and direction of all the other courses, because it is philosophy that formulates the principles of epistemology, i.e., the rules by which men are to acquire knowledge. The influence of the dominant philosophic theories permeates every other department, including the physical sciences, and becomes the more dangerous because accepted subconsciously. The philosophic theories of the past 200 years, since Immanuel Kant, seem to justify the attitude of those who dismiss philosophy as empty, inconsequential verbiage. But this, precisely, is the danger. Surrendering philosophy, i.e. the foundations of knowledge, to the purveyors of empty verbiage is far from inconsequential. It is particularly to philosophy that one must apply the advice of Ellsworth Toohey in The Fountainhead. Don't bother to examine a folly. Ask yourself only what it accomplishes. Consider the progressive stages of modern philosophy, not from the aspect of its philosophic content, but of its psycho-epistemological goals. When pragmatism declares that reality is an indeterminate flux, which can be anything people want it to be, nobody accepts it literally. But it strikes a note of emotional recognition in the mind of a progressive nursery graduate, because it seems to justify a feeling he has not been able to explain, the omnipotence of the pack. So he accepts it as true in some indeterminate way, to be used when and as needed. When pragmatism declares that truth is to be judged by consequences, it justifies his inability to project the future, to plan his course of action long range, and sanctions his wish to act on the spur of the moment, to try anything once and then discover whether he can get away with it or not. When logical positivism declares that reality, identity, existence, mind are meaningless terms, that man can be certain of nothing but the sensory perceptions of the immediate moment, when it declares that the meaning of the proposition, Napoleon lost the Battle of Waterloo, is your walk to the library where you read it in a book, the progressive nursery graduate recognizes it as an exact description of his inner state and as a justification of his concrete-bound perceptual mentality. When linguistic analysis declares that the ultimate reality is not even percepts, but words, and that words have no specific reference, but mean whatever people want them to mean, the progressive graduate finds himself happily back at home in the familiar world of his nursery school. He does not have to struggle to grasp an incomprehensible reality. All he has to do is focus on people and watch for the vibrations of how they use words, and compete with his fellow philosophers in how many different vibrations he is able to discover. And more, armed with the prestige of philosophy, he can now tell people what they mean when they speak, which they are unable to know without his assistance, i.e., he can appoint himself interpreter of the will of the pack. What had once been a little manipulator now grows to the full psychoepistemological stature of a shyster lawyer. And more, linguistic analysis is vehemently opposed to all the intellectual feats he is unable to perform. It is opposed to any kind of principles or broad generalizations, i.e., to consistency. It is opposed to basic axioms as analytic and redundant, i.e., to the necessity of any grounds for one's assertions. It is opposed to the hierarchical structure of concepts, i.e., to the process of abstraction, and regards any word as an isolated primary, i.e., as a perceptually given concrete. It is opposed to system building, i.e., to the integration of knowledge. The progressive nursery graduate thus finds all his psychoepistemological flaws transformed into virtues, and instead of hiding them as a guilty secret, he can flaunt them as proof of his intellectual superiority. As to the students who did not attend the progressive nursery, they are now worked over to make them equal his mental status. It is the claim of linguistic analysis that its purpose is not the communication of any particular philosophic content, but the training of a student's mind. This is true, in the terrible butchering sense of a Comprachico operation. The detailed discussions of inconsequential minutiae, the discourses on trivia picked at random and in midstream, without base, context, or conclusion, the shocks of self-doubt at the professor's sudden revelations of some such fact as the student's inability to define the word but, which, he claims, proves that they do not understand their own statements, the countering of the question, what is the meaning of philosophy, with which sense of meaning do you mean, followed by a discourse on 12 possible uses of the word meaning, by which time the question is lost, and above all, the necessity to shrink one's focus to the range of a flea's and to keep it there will cripple the best of minds if it attempts to comply. Mind training pertains to psychoepistemology. It consists in making a mind automatize certain processes, turning them into permanent habits. What habits does linguistic analysis inculcate? Context dropping, concept stealing, disintegration, purposelessness, the inability to grasp, retain, or deal with abstractions. Linguistic analysis is not a philosophy. It is a method of eliminating the capacity for philosophical thought. It is a course in brain destruction, a systematic attempt to turn a rational animal into an animal unable to reason. Why? What is the Comprachicos' motive? To paraphrase Victor Hugo, and what did they make of these children? Monsters. Why monsters? To rule. Man's mind is his basic means of survival and of self-protection. Reason is the most selfish human faculty. It has to be used in and by a man's own mind, and its product, truth, makes him inflexible, intransigent, impervious to the power of any pack or any ruler. Deprived of the ability to reason, man becomes a docile, pliant, impotent chunk of clay, to be shaped into any subhuman form and used for any purpose by anyone who wants to bother. There has never been a philosophy, a theory, or a doctrine that attacked or limited reason which did not also preach submission to the power of some authority. Philosophically, most men do not understand the issue to this day, but psychoepistemologically, they have sensed it since prehistoric times. Observe the nature of mankind's earliest legends, such as the fall of Lucifer, the light-bearer for the sin of defying authority, or the story of Prometheus, who taught men the practical arts of survival. Power seekers have always known that if men are to be made submissive, the obstacle is not their feelings, their wishes, or their instincts, but their minds. If men are to be ruled, then the enemy is reason. Power lust is a psychoepistemological matter. It is not confined to potential dictators or aspiring politicians. It can be experienced chronically or sporadically by men in any profession on any level of intellectual development. It is experienced by shriveled scholars, by noisy playboys, by shabby office managers, by pretentious millionaires, by droning teachers, by cocktail-chasing mothers, by anyone who, having uttered an assertion, confronts the direct glance of a man or a child and hears the words, "But that is not true." Those who, in such moments, feel the desire not to persuade, but to force the mind behind the direct eyes, are the legions that make the Comprachicos possible. Not all of the modern teachers are consciously motivated by power lust, though a great many of them are. Not all of them are consciously aware of the goal of obliterating reason by crippling the minds of their students. Some aspire to nothing but the mean little pleasure of fooling and defeating too intelligently, persistently inquiring a student. Some seek nothing but to hide and evade the holes and contradictions in their own intellectual equipment. Some had never sought anything but a safe, undemanding, respectable position, and would not dream of contradicting the majority of their colleagues or of their textbooks. Some are eaten by envy of the rich, the famous, the successful, the independent. Some believe, or try to believe, the thin veneer of humanitarian rationalizations coating the theories of Kant or John Dewey, and all of them are products of the same educational system in its earlier stages. The system is self-perpetuating. It leads to many vicious circles. There are promising, intelligent teachers who are driven to despair by the obtuse, lethargic, invincibly unthinking mentalities of their students. The grade and high school teachers blame it on parental influences. The college professors blame it on the grade and high school teachers. Few, if any, question the content of the courses. After struggling for a few years, these better teachers give up and retire, or become convinced that reason is beyond the grasp of most men, and remain as bitterly indifferent camp followers of the Comprachicos' advance. But the Comprachico leaders, past and present, are aware of their own motives. It is impossible to be consumed by a single passion without knowing its nature, no matter what rationalizations one constructs to hide it from oneself. If you want to see hatred, do not look at wars or concentration camps. These are merely its consequences. Look at the writings of Kant, Dewey, Marcuse, and their followers to see pure hatred. Hatred of reason and of everything it implies. Of intelligence, of ability, of achievement, of success, of self-confidence, of self-esteem, of every bright, happy, benevolent aspect of man. This is the atmosphere, the leitmotif, the sense of life permeating today's educational establishment. What brings a human being to the state of a Comprachico? Self-loathing. The degree of a man's hatred for reason is the measure of his hatred for himself. The Comprachico leader does not aspire to the role of political dictator. He leaves it to his heir, the mindless brute. The Comprachicos are not concerned with establishing anything. The obliteration of reason is their single passion and goal. What comes afterward has no reality to them. Dimly, they fancy themselves as the masters who will pull the strings behind the ruler's throne. The brute, they feel, will need them. That they end up as terrorized bootlickers at the brute's court and at his mercy, as in Nazi Germany and Soviet Russia, is merely an instance of reality's justice. Power lust requires guinea pigs to develop the techniques of inculcating obedience, and cannon fodder that will obey the orders. College students fill both roles. Psychoepistemological flattery is the most potent technique to use on a person with a damaged brain. The progressive nursery graduate's last link to rationality, the feeling that there is something wrong with him, is cut off in college. There is nothing wrong with him, he is told. His is the healthy natural state. He is merely unable to function in a system that ignores human nature. He is normal. The system is abnormal. The term system is left undefined at first. It may be the educational system, the cultural system, the private family system, anything that a student might blame for his inner misery. This induces a paranoid mood, the feeling that he is an innocent victim persecuted by some dark, mysterious powers, which builds up in him a blind, helpless rage. The theories of determinism, with which he is battered in most of his courses, intensify and justify his mood. If he is miserable, he cannot help it, they tell him. He cannot help anything he feels or does. He is a product of society, and society has made a bad job of it. By the time he hears that all his troubles, from poor grades to sexual problems to chronic anxiety, are caused by the political system and that the enemy is capitalism, he accepts it as self-evident. The methods of teaching are essentially the same as those used in high school, only more so. The curriculum is an embodiment of disintegration, a hodgepodge of random subjects without continuity, context, or purpose. It is like a series of balkanized kingdoms, offering a survey course of floating abstractions or an over-detailed study of a professor's favorite minutiae, with the borders closed to the kingdom in the next classroom, with no connections, no bridges, no maps. Maps, i.e., systematization, are forbidden on principle. Cramming and memorizing are the student's only psychoepistemological means of getting through. There are graduates in philosophy who can recite the differences between the early and late Wittgenstein, but have never had a course on Aristotle. There are graduates in psychology who have puttered about with rats in mazes, with knee-jerking reflexes and with statistics, but never got to an actual study of human psychology. The discussion seminars are part of the technique of flattery. When an ignorant adolescent is asked to air his views on a subject he has not studied, he gets the message that the status of college student has transformed him from an ignoramus into an authority, and that the significance of any opinion lies in the fact that somebody holds it, with no reasons, knowledge, or grounds necessary. This helps to justify the importance of watching for the vibrations of the pack. Such discussions advance another purpose of the Comprachico technique. the breeding of hostility, the encouragement of criticism rather than creativeness. In the absence of any reasoned views, the students develop the knack of blasting each other's nonsense, which is not difficult in the circumstances, and come to regard the demolition of a bad argument as the equivalent of the construction of a good one. The example is set by the professors who in their own publications and debates are often brilliant at demolishing one another's irrational theories, but fall flat in attempting to present a new theory of their own. In the absence of intellectual content, the students resort to personal attacks, practicing with impunity the old fallacy of ad hominem, substituting insults for arguments with hooligan rudeness and four-letter words accepted as part of their freedom of speech. Thus, malice is protected. Ideas are not. The unimportance of ideas is further stressed by the demand that the nature of such discussions be ignored, and the participants remain good friends no matter what offensive exchanges took place in the name of intellectual tolerance. An eloquent demonstration of today's general contempt for the power of ideas is offered by the fact that people did not expect an education of this kind to produce any consequences, and are now shocked by the spectacle of college students putting into practice what they have been taught. If, after such a training, the students demand the power to run the universities, why shouldn't they? They were given that power intellectually and decided to exercise it existentially. They were regarded as qualified arbiters of ideas, without knowledge, preparation, or experience, and they decided that they were qualified administrators, without knowledge, preparation, or experience. The students' demand that their courses be relevant to their actual lives has a badly twisted element of validity. The only purpose of education is to teach a student how to live his life, by developing his mind and equipping him to deal with reality. The training he needs is theoretical, i.e., conceptual. He has to be taught to think, to understand, to integrate, to prove. He has to be taught the essentials of the knowledge discovered in the past, and he has to be equipped to acquire further knowledge by his own effort. All of this is what the colleges have renounced, failed in, and defaulted on long ago. What they are teaching today has no relevance to anything, neither to theory, nor practice, nor reality, nor human life. But, in keeping with their concrete-bound psychoepistemology, what the students regard as relevant are such things as courses in community action, air pollution, rat control, and guerrilla warfare. Their criteria for determining a college curriculum are the newspaper headlines of the immediate moment.
And that was the next part of Chapter 7 from Return of the Primitive, the Anti-Industrial Revolution, written by Ayn Rand and read by Bernadette Dunn. She would have done well, again, to drop this Comper nonsense, and really what she's talking about is how it is that colleges and universities create liberals. Back in a minute. Thank you. This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there, and reminding you that you're not neutral and that the government has no rights.